Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Westworld Season 2, Episode 9. It is called Vanishing Point. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. And sorry, this is a little bit later than usual, although it's nowhere near as late as last week. This was not planned this time, so it's just a slight delay this week, but should be back to the normal time for the finale. But we have this episode to talk about, and it was actually Father's Day in the US yesterday when this aired. This was like the most anti-father episode of any show I think of. Well, I mean, there was some happy Father's Day stuff with Ford, I suppose. Not so much with William slash the Man in Black. Not so much with him.
No, it wasn't.
Because we had that. We also had a high body count in this episode. There was a
Surprisingly so.
Yeah, a lot of bodies dropping before the finale. Now, admittedly, sure, one or two of them might be hosts, but I mean, still, we're not exactly in the position right now where people are resurrecting hosts left and right. You know,
Yeah,
but
you could bring them back, but they're not ready to just be brought back next episode.
yeah, Park's not operational, so high body count, right? Obviously, I think the Man in Black stuff was probably the biggest. It was the epicenter of the episode. Everything else was kind of the subplots. That was the main focus. We actually had flashbacks to the night that his wife died.
Yeah.
We see her alive. We see that she has a bit of a drinking problem. And this episode, more than anything else, is kind of exploring the idea that William is a very kind of sick, corrupt man. In fact, at one point, his wife even says to him, "You're a virus. You infected this family. You started with my brother, then my father, then me." And if you want to go along her line of thinking, by the end of this episode, even his daughter, like every single member of the family, has had their life ruined by him.
Yeah.
That very much seems to be a thing. And she calls him out. She sees it. She sees that there's more to him than what he pretends to be in the real world. And she accuses him of this. He kind of admits it when she's not awake. Well, she is awake. She turns out she is awake, but she's pretending to be asleep.
Yes.
And he kind of actually finally openly admits all of this and says, "No, you know what? You're right. Like, somewhere along the way, I realized I had this inside me, and then I couldn't remember when it was never there. Like, it just seemed like it was always there. And I don't really belong to you. I don't belong to this world. I belong to somewhere else. And I try to be kind out here. Out in this world, I'm kind. I'm generous. That's got to count for something, right?" And she hears this. And then she goes and checks on his profile, the card that because Ford's at this party that we're at, and Ford gave him this card, which she looks at, and it's his profile because Ford brings up, "Oh, your experiment, your thing." We find out it's called the Forge, but we'll talk about that when we get
That's
to
a
that
whole
scene.
separate debate.
That's a whole separate discussion. But he gets the card. She gets the card, or rather, she finds it in the book that he put it in, and she looks at it, and it's actually just straight up footage. It's a history of everything he's done in the park and the
Yeah,
type of
and
person
a
he is there.
profile.
Yes, and I mean, if I want to be a little bit cynical here, I could debate as to how they have the footage they have specifically of what he's doing,
Sure.
because it's
Sure.
essentially just the footage of the show in these little windows on the tablet.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to go for it, say, every bird has a little camera in it.
Why is no one who works at the park ever looked at any footage in the last two seasons? Unless it's also off the books, like this entire experiment.
Yeah, there you go. If it's all under this umbrella.
Possibly. But the people who work in the park, the maintenance, the engineers, all the ones running the park, they have never said, "Oh, bring up the video feed of X," because they would. They absolutely would if that
Oh
was
yeah,
a
yeah,
tool they
definitely.
had. So it crossed my mind when she was looking at it. But the emotional impact of it, the idea that he admitted all this, and then she actually got to see who he was at the park, and that's what caused her to kill herself. That was the motivating factor to commit suicide. And we see him run up and see it, and he's very he's shocked, but I wouldn't say he's terribly empathetic about it.
No, I think he was. He'd not been necessarily expecting it tonight, but he was kind of prepared, I'd say.
Yeah,
Like,
possibly.
I think he was aware that this could happen at some point.
Because of course, Grace or Emily, as her real sort of name is, that's what she's called in the flashbacks. She suggests, "Oh, you have to go back to rehab because you're a bit of a mess. You're making a fool of yourself. You need help. We're going to send you back to rehab." And she's not very happy about it, of course. And that so Grace is kind of blaming herself, and she's patching up her dad in I won't say present day because we're not at the end of the 2 week period yet,
Yeah.
but
Relatively.
Yes, but inside the current timeline of the show, she's patching up her dad, and he's debating. She's like, well, he's asking various questions. He's asking, "How did you find me? Because this is a big place, right?" Because basically, what he's thinking is she's a host. She's not really his daughter, and he's brought this up before, but he thinks it's not really his daughter, and he thinks, "Oh, you found me this easily," as evidence of that. He thinks she's acting out of character for her. No, my Emily, she'd already be a safety net. She would call me out on all this shit because she brings up the experiment, what they're doing. So, oh, you're looking for immortality. I want in, and she frames it as I want in because I want to find out. Because if you've got a profile on her mother, I want to see why she did it, why she killed herself. And he's like, no, my daughter wouldn't do this. She would berate me, and she'd be out of here in the first instant she could. It's not you. And he just says F you, Ford, and she's trying to convince him. And she's like, no, I'm not a host pretending to be a human. I'm your daughter pretending to give a shit about you. I thought that was a good line. All this is happening, and all this is just sort of prelude. This is all just prelude to the moment, the big moment, where. So she's sent out a flare, a signal for help, and some workers from the park, the security guards, come in, and they're there. They're checking both of them to make sure they're human, because obviously there's rampant hosts running around, and he even recognises as William as the boss. He's like, oh, it's you.
I do think it's worth noting that we never see the results of Emily's scan.
I've seen this debated online. I actually don't think this is important that some people think it is.
No?
I don't. I feel like... sure, the possibility is open to swerves later.
Yeah.
Right, it is there. Like, the possibility is open to say, oh no, it really was a host this whole time and the real daughter's not here. That is entirely possible, but I feel like we don't need to see it. That's kind of the point. Like, we're sharing the doubt with him, and then he sees the card. Because obviously what happens here is he shoots all the guards. He's like, no, I'm seeing this through to the end. And she's like, what did you do? You just killed real people. What did you do? And then, and I was actually thinking during that moment, well, is he going to shoot her? Because, he thinks she's a host, so why not? Why wouldn't he? And sure enough, he shoots her right in the chest, and she goes down. But he sees the card. It's the card he had, the one that Ford gave him, the profile, in her hand, and that's what sort of leads us back into the flashback of what he admitted to his wife. And for me, I don't need any. Sure, again, the door's open. They could swerve us. I don't think it's there to be for a swerve, though.
I think the only thing that leaves it open, as a linked piece of evidence along with that, is the story about the music box, right? So she has the card, but she had a whole story relatively early in the episode about how she got the music box as a gift from her mother, but she threw it out, and then that was it. It went, it got thrown out in the trash, and that was it. But at the end, in this final flashback, when we see the mother, looking at the profile, she has the music box still in the drawer, and she puts the card away in the same drawer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if she's found the card, would she not have also found the box?
She would have.
So you think that whole story at the start was just a lie?
It's not a lie. I think the story's true. I think the reason why it wasn't in the trash when she went to get it is because her mother already took it out. And her mother left... Because for me, that's like an emotional point, is that when she finds this music box that she thought she threw out, she had this guilt. That's the story she told him. She has this guilt because she threw it out. And inside that, it was the card with all the data on it. So to me... that wasn't a sign that she was telling an incorrect story. To me, that was a sign that, no, this meant something to her, and she found the card inside this that meant her mother did care. Okay.
Okay, maybe.
So I didn't really like that at all. For me, it was no, her mother kept it all this time. And given that parentage and lineage is a big theme of this episode. For me, that's kind of what it was, because it kind of ties into, it parallels with the Ford scene with Maeve, which we'll get to in a bit.
No, it does line up. Don't get me wrong. I do agree with that, and I did consider it, but I don't know. It was a possibility that I'm crossing my mind. It leaves a seed of doubt, is all.
Yeah, I never got off the music box. The music box for me was pretty, I guess, cut and dry. Like, I never took it as like, oh, this is a seed that could lead to some. For me, that the point of it was kind of already, it served its purpose, and that was it.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so no. But yeah, it shoots his daughter. She's dead,
Yep.
and he sees the card because he's going to check her. Because it's worth mentioning, he keeps throughout the episode, both in the flashback and in present day, in the island, in the park timeline, he keeps checking his arm, like he's concerned that he himself is a host and he doesn't know it.
Yeah.
And he's worried about it. To the point where later on in the episode, and that's the thing, the guy does the test on him, but he's still, after that scene, afterwards, when he's sort of realising what he's done, he starts cutting into his arm to try and check.
Yeah.
Even though
I think it's neat that in the Bernard plot, we see him cutting open his arm there again, just as a reminder of what is at that point of the arm, in case you've forgotten.
Yeah, so it's a neat little reminder, yeah. And, he puts the gun up to his head, and he puts it down, but there's a moment there. He's not the last character in this episode to put a gun up to his head, but more on that in a bit. This was a really dark episode for William. I feel like, up until this point, I've been kind of under the impression that the arc for him is sort of refinding his humanity, and I feel like after this episode, it's actually a much darker story. It's a much more of a tragic story of maybe that humanity isn't always necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like it's as much as that it's trying to highlight to him that he's mentally ill, because you see on that profile he's psychotic tendencies. I think he's snapped. He's had a psychotic break here.
Yeah, no, that can
as
be
much as
definition
in
of
the
it.
flashback, it's all no, the mother needs help. We've got to get her into rehab. I think it's meant to be no, you need help.
Yeah, well, that's what the daughter says to him. She's like, "I'm going to put you away."
Yeah.
Like we were going to mother, and now, well, no, she's not, because she's dead. But it's a super dark thing. I've already seen people photoshopping Happy Father's Day onto the card. When her hand flops open and he picks it up.
As you do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was amusing. I liked her tone, like her tone when she was talking to him. There was a point where it kind of turned and it kind of became, it became this almost like the way you talk to a child, like you're trying to have them understand what you're doing. Like you need help, but there was a tone to it that felt very kind of natural here. It was like it's the sort of thing where if you noticed it as the person being spoken to, you would think it was condescending.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was there, and I thought that was a smart little touch in that story.
No, I definitely agree with that.
But hey, so that was the Man in Black stuff. We had, of course, other things going on. Bernard is moping around with Ford inside his head, and he overhears some stuff. He sees this plan that they've taken some data from Maeve.
Yeah.
So basically, just try to understand what she does to other hosts, and they've put it into Clementine, and they've basically given Clementine, I'll call it a society bomb, where she'll basically just encourage a group of hosts to start murdering each other.
What she does is she starts the church scene from Kingsman.
Pretty much, yes. That's
that crossed my mind as I was watching. I'm just thinking, really, did Clem need to be scarier? She was terrifying enough as it was.
She is pretty terrifying, and then now she just stares and people start murdering each other.
Yeah. This is not what I needed. I didn't want the nightmares.
But so obviously that's set up, and we don't really see any more of that this episode, but it's set up that that's happening, and it also gives you the idea that they don't really need Maeve anymore. They even say something to that effect. Oh, we won't need her. We don't need the Madame anymore.
She's under Charlotte's control.
Yes, but Bernard's going to leave, but Ford's like, no. There's one more thing we have to do, and he leads them to Maeve. And he's going to go inside. He's like, no, you don't have to go inside. This is close enough. Maeve can read. She can find the message that I've left in here, in your head, for her.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, all right, so I wasn't sure we were going to see it this episode. I thought, oh, well, she'll have a new motive, and we won't know what it is until later. But no, we actually do get the scene later on. But Bernard, he goes and meets up with Elsie. They go out, and they stopped. She stops to try and get some ammo and guns and whatnot. And that's when
Ford is constantly saying, "Hey, she's going to betray you. You have to deal with her."
Yeah, and what I think's interesting about this scene is I is of my opinion that Ford intended Bernard to do what he did, that he wanted Bernard to rebel and get rid of him.
Yeah, I think especially after what we've seen him say to Maeve, I think that plays a part in why you come to that conclusion. Though. Yeah,
it does. I even the scene itself, because I think this scene was first before we got to the Maeve
I don't think
scene.
it was.
Not really matters either way, but
no.
He but he makes the choice. He said he kind of goads him, and then he didn't try to stop him. When Bernard jacks into the tablet and he's looking for the data files, and he's like, "No, I'm going to get rid of these packets." Forrest's like, "I'm not going to stop you. Like, you're the only one who can stop this. You have to open the door. Go." And he disappears. And he actually makes the choice that he's worried about hurting Elsie. He's like, "No, you should stay here." And I love this scene a little bit because Elsie's reaction to this. So she's scared at first. She's got her hand on her gun. So you were going to hurt me. And then he's like, no, like, he explains...
Just a precaution.
Yeah, it's just a precaution, and probably best that I leave you here. And, when we're done, you can do what you want. Turn me off, reboot me, whatever you see fit to do. But she kind of has like a tear in her eye by the end of it. And she says F you, Bernard, as he leaves. And I couldn't help but feel like her relationship with him is like a really weird mix of feelings, probably. Like, there's like a respect, definitely. But there's like a fear, but there's like he's a host, but he's also one of the most humane people she knows.
But he did attack me.
He attacked me, but he's also like the only reason why I'm probably still alive right now.
Yeah, it's very, very conflicting, isn't it?
Very conflicted, a real mix of emotions in her. And that's kind of Bernard. He drives off on his own for the finale. He's off he goes. Yeah. So we should jump to Maeve, the Maeve and Ford scene, which I think is my favourite scene of the episode. Because as good as some of the other stuff is, and I think it's funny, actually, like, season 1, I think Dolores was the better and definitely the A-plot. I feel like season 2, Maeve is taking that spot, and Maeve's story's really been the best stuff of the season. Especially when you account the Akechta stuff from last week as part of her story.
Absolutely. Dolores, it's mostly been action stuff, her plot.
Yeah, there's not actually been that much to it. It's all just been kind of, we need to get to the valley.
A little bit of manipulation here or there, but mostly just the one driving goal and then the action that it takes to get through there.
Before we talk about Maeve's scene, the Forge, because that was brought up in a Bernard scene with Elsie.
It was, yes.
And it kind of just confirmed a few things that we were kind of speculating at. Although more specifically now, especially because there's a scene with Dolores and the Ghost Nation where they end up fighting. And the Ghost Nation are like, no, this is a passage to another world that has no bloodshed on it. And that line there basically told me that no, especially combined with Bernard saying it's just like the cradle, but it's all the data of the people. I'm like, wait, are all the people they've collected, are they all living in a virtual world inside this forge? Because if that's what the cradle's like as a simulation, then it makes me think that's what the forge is.
I assume it is, yeah. Just a bigger scale, right?
Yeah, and it's like, how complete are the people in there?
I would assume in the same way that Ford inside the cradle was complete. It was the problems only arose trying to put them into a body, right?
Well, I guess the only reason I have to dispute that they'd be equal is that A, Ford kind of like planned for his own transference and kind of initiated it, and B, he was working independently of William, and William, on the other hand, has been doing it in secret with like a sensor in their hat.
Yeah, it's in the hats.
It's in the hat. Who's not wearing the hat? Who's safe?
Yeah, and how long do they have to be wearing a hat for?
And is there other items, like if they don't wear a hat, does the gun holster maybe have it? But then again, does it have to be near the head? Is that like
that's what I would assume. Yeah. That's why hat, right?
Yeah.
But that's why you give them a hat when they come in.
I guess that's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's extra because that was one of the little touching scenes. The little touches I liked with some of the stuff with William. There was like when he was explaining like who he was to his wife, there was like flashbacks to the park from season 1 and stuff throughout his life. I quite like that stuff. But yeah, so the Forge, interesting stuff. Dolores seemingly wants to destroy it to take it away from them, or at the very least control it and hold it hostage, perhaps.
Yeah.
As leverage. Ghost Nation doesn't want to do that. Ghost Nation sees it as some kind of like afterlife almost.
Yeah, we got little bits. If you go all the way back to season 1, the idea, they had one of the dolls of like the security guards outfits, and we heard that this had kind of Delos had become their religion. So this is the afterlife to them. I think that's a fascinating concept. Which
extends, of course, from Akechta's whole story. I wonder how much the others think this. Like, does Akechta specifically believe this about this world? Does he see that as a place where they can all just live? And because has the other Ghost Nation warrior says here, it's a world without bloodshed, meaning that there's no real violence in it because it is simulated.
It's all virtual. Yeah.
So it's safe, I guess.
I think so. It's eternal life, right? Essentially.
Yeah. But to jump back to Maeve and Ford, right? Maeve's lying on the table, and we see, like, like he has been with Bernard, right? Same thing. So she's gotten the data from Bernard's head, the copy of Ford with the message that he's got for her, and he's walking around the room as she's lying on the table, dying, and he starts talking about, and that's kind of, it's funny because we were debating last week if Akechta maybe initiated some of her first awakening moments. This scene actually puts us back round to our original thought. Our original thought being that Ford did initiate her escape, and he wanted her to escape at the end of season 1, but she didn't. And we even said repeatedly that was probably the moment that she truly became awake.
Yeah, when she chose to get off the train.
Yeah, that was her choice. That was the first moment she really chose to do something. And this was a beautiful scene, and obviously he referred to, like, Maeve as his favourite host. He said it's the closest he's ever had to having children. Yeah. And I think that's a fascinating idea, especially since I'm like, okay, that's your favourite, and that makes sense because Dolores and presumably Teddy were Arnold's creations more so in terms of
absolutely.
In terms of their in terms of the character, in terms of who they are, whereas Maeve was yours. And I think it's very interesting that Maeve seems a lot more level-headed, and her compared to Dolores, right, where Arnold, who seemed like the really sensible one in how he was going about things in the flashbacks and the backstory, his creation, becoming self-aware, has basically turned into a Terminator crazy chick, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to fight.
No getting around it.
Whereas Ford, who took his time and let them build up the experience, his creation, who's become self-aware, is actually, I mean, sure, she's not necessarily completely all there, but she's a lot more. She's caring. She's values. Empathetic. She has morals. As he even points out in the scene, he says that, like, sometimes the world's so cruel and you have to laugh at it. So any host I made, I imbued some of my worldviews, and that lines up because Maeve did have kind of a cutting sense of humor. She would,
oh yeah, definitely.
Very biting the way she would crack jokes about things. Very sarcastic. There's a lot of that in there in our character, and it gets very touching because he's like, oh, you chose to come back. I didn't want you to stay in this awful world with these people, these awful men of stone, like, but you chose to come back and save your child.
Yeah.
And so have I. And I'm like, oh, just like last time we saw Ford in terms of, like, the last episode, he was inside Bernard making him shoot someone, and I'm like, oh, Ford's a baddie. And in this scene, I'm like, oh, Ford's like the best of them all.
He was like, I just wanted you to be free.
And he's like, oh, because even when he was talking to Bernard, he was saying, oh, it's not just your life here, Bernard, it's the origin of a new species. And I'm like, okay, so again, I'm figuring out Ford's motivations is like a maze in and of itself.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty confident that he genuinely does want them to become a species, become aware, become free. But I think he recognizes Dolores is probably a problem. Yeah,
unless he sees, like, that also as a growing pain, like she has to go through this.
Yeah, maybe. See, I don't know if he sees it as, okay, no, she has to get that out of her system almost, go through it and grow up, mature.
This is her adolescence before she matures, yeah.
Or alternatively, is this the necessary evil, like, okay, I have to sacrifice some aspects of them to push the rest of them forward, because Dolores has been a driving force in making everyone else around her react and become more aware. So maybe it's like, no, okay. So he feels like maybe he couldn't save her, but can use her to push life into everyone else.
I think it's interesting as well how Dolores parallels with the Man in Black now.
Yeah.
How she ruins the people around her. How she's changed them.
Definitely.
More than that scene, that when we get to that in a minute, but
of course it makes sense given that they kind of started their journeys together.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, it really does, and and their story started so sweet. When it was William and Dolores in the park last season, it was like this sweet story of, like, people who actually cared, and he actually cared about her and treated her a little bit differently.
And now they are the Terminators.
Yeah, I mean, because that was that moment at the party in the flashback, just before the park, where he sees the waitress and he sees Dolores for a minute. And I thought it was just her for a minute, because, they've got hosts as the waiters.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But no, it's just, it snaps and it's like, oh no, it's just someone else. He's seeing her.
Yeah, it's just a memory.
He's obsessed. And it's like, and I almost wonder if his whole thing, as dark as it may be, is the root of it that he's desperate to find the humanity, the real humanity in the park, because it's missing from himself.
Yeah.
He's trying to fill that void with finding it in there.
Could be.
But yeah, I think that's interesting. And it's funny because he talks about how his wife is the only one who could see him, and I guess in a way Ford could too, although Ford had the benefit of just seeing how he was in the park.
Seeing him, because even he accepts now that's who he really is, and being out in the real world is a front.
Yeah.
So Ford always saw the real him.
Yeah. And actually, just to go back to the Maeve scene, one of my most interesting things about this is he's talking about her and creating her, and you're my favourite host, and I'm proud of you. I don't think he says proud of you, but there's definitely some allusions to pride and so on. He's definitely proud of how she made her own choice and what she's done. And I was really paying attention to her reactions to all this, because given her attitude of like, oh, I'm not real, I've been in this park, I need to break out, I want my daughter, the people who have held us here are evil, but like all her attitude all last season, but he is like being this loving father figure in this scene. I can't help but be fascinated, like, if we get another scene with Maeve and Ford where she can actually communicate back, what does she say in return? What is her reaction to this?
I mean, that's a follow-up question to that is, how much of Ford is in her now? Was it just this message? Was it just literally like almost a recording? Or was it a full copy of all of Ford in the same way that was in Bernard, and that's why he was fine with Bernard deleting him in there? Like, what was that? Was when Bernard deleted him, was that the end of Ford? Because assuming he's not in the Forge as well, and he was just in the Cradle.
I mean, if it is the end of Ford, that was a really couple of great scenes to go out on.
Yeah.
To inspire them and then leave. I still kind of think he's still in the Cradle or whatever.
Yeah, the Forge.
Yeah, the Forge, yeah. It was in the Cradle first. That's where it was.
It was, but the Cradle got destroyed, right?
True, that's right. Very true.
So I'm thinking, is there another copy of him in the Forge?
Yeah, I don't get the impression that he's in Maeve, like, completely.
No, that's what I thought, but I was just double checking that I hadn't misread it, given that he seemingly went out with Bernard.
Yeah, it was the way he said to him, I've left a message for her. It sounded more like, it was just a recording of one thing.
Yeah.
And again, that kiss at the end, when he kisses her on the head, he's like, these people are determined not to let you leave and live. Don't let them. Like, don't let them stop you. It was a really nice sentiment at the end. So, what can I say? Getting heartwarming moments for Ford. I mean, not that I've been getting heartwarming moments from Man in Black per se, but this was like easily the darkest his story's ever.
More heartbreaking than heartwarming.
Yes. He killed his own daughter and then realised he'd done it, and now he's at least partially suicidal. If he's not willing to go through with it yet, that's one thing, but he's not in a great place.
Considered it, yeah.
So very dark. I almost wonder. It makes me wonder if Ford and like Man in Black will be gone by the end of the season. Like if we leave those characters, but maybe outside of flashbacks and like relevant backstory.
Yeah, I think Ford definitely. I think Man in Black. It really depends on what we do next episode.
Yeah.
Because like I say, if the end game is, and we want to get him help, then I feel like there's still a lot of story still to be explored there.
I feel like. On the one, I've got 2 points I'm thinking, just two random thoughts related to Man in Black here. One, because we've spent so much time on his backstory, both with the Delos stuff and then this episode with the death of his wife and now his daughter, it would make sense that if he's going to go out next episode, if it's his final episode, the end of his story, it works for me. I don't feel like it's unfulfilled.
No.
But what has to happen is my second point here, whether he's going out or not, I feel like the next episode, he has to run into Dolores. I feel like that's the meeting that has to happen now.
Okay. I think it cannot happen next episode. If we're keeping him around and you want to do that.
If we're keeping him around, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking...
You can't have him go out without having that.
Without having that scene where maybe what he's become makes her realise what she's becoming and helps her.
Yeah, I think you
that.
Definitely have to have that confrontation between them. Whether or not that's next episode depends on their plans for the character going forward.
Yeah, but I feel like I see him stumbling towards the valley as Dolores is there. and they have some sort of, moment.
Quite possibly. I mean, I can see in his desperation, that he just killed his daughter. Go to the valley, and there'll be a copy of her in the forge, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he was still so intent in playing the game that he was willing to kill everyone. Honestly, him realizing that he's killed his daughter is the first time I think he might change his motivation.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, in the same way that she wanted to go to the forge and look for her mother,
Mm.
does he go and look for her, even if just to apologize?
Does he finally succeed in putting a person in a host with his daughter before he dies? Is that like his final?
It could be here. His legacy.
Does he realize something? Does he put her in Dolores?
Oh God, don't do that.
The joint of Dolores, and Dolores like hates herself. We'll get to that why in a minute. And Man in Black's like, hey, I need a like a, because maybe it would work because she's already become self-aware. Like it would take to the human mind more.
Maybe,
I
but
don't know.
because she is self-aware, would that not be murder at that point? You'd be killing Dolores to
That's
overwrite
fair.
her with.
Or do they merge? And then it's weird and incestuous because now the woman he kind of has the hots for is mixed with his daughter.
Yeah, or
Which, I mean, okay,
does,
arguably, technically, like, if he's got the hots for his wife and then they have a daughter, then technically the daughter's a mix of his wife. I get that what I said there was a little bit silly, but you know what I meant. You know what I meant.
I did, yeah, but no, I mean, does it become a bit of a split personality deal if you try that? Are they kind of both in there fighting for control? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to go down that route, but if it does, I'm intrigued to see what the result is.
Can they access each other's memories so she can remember Dolores having sex with her dad?
That would be uncomfortable.
That would be that'd be a psychotic break right there.
Probably would.
Now, speaking of breaks, so early on, Dolores and Teddy and Co. Fight. They have this fight with the Ghost Nation, and Teddy's running after, the survivor, the one that's left, and he doesn't take the shot, even though we've seen that he's like ruthless now. He has a moment, and we actually go away. This kind of bookends the episode because this is right near the start, and then the final scene is him and Dolores just on their own. They're in this like house that's sort of like falling apart. And then, there's, and again, it was kind of reminiscent of some scenes we've had this season, and I was almost worried at first because I was like, oh, here we go again, talking about how beautiful the world is and how we have to get out of it, and like, because we've had this a few times at this point. But it takes a turn.
Yeah, there's a point where you kind of just go, hang on a second, I know where this is going.
Yeah, where Teddy cause this is actually the first real. I mean, obviously there's the moments where he doesn't want to shoot people earlier on in the season, but I feel like this is the first real scene where I'm like, oh, Teddy actually is becoming awake. He is actually self-aware.
Yeah, I think we really considered it when he let the group go, right?
Yeah.
After the siege, but then obviously Dolores messed with him, and we were like, okay, he's because I think the impression I had at the time was he was aware. Dolores kind of messed with him and took that away.
I wasn't getting that. I was getting like we were speculating he was aware, but he wasn't really. Because that just fit with his character. That was his character already. Would be someone who lets them go.
No, that's true.
And then she just changed his character, and it's only just now that he's maybe finally starting to wake up because he realizes he's being changed. Because again, talking about sweet scenes, when he says he remembers the lives and he remembers being woken up for the first time, and we hear Arnold's voice, and he wakes him up, and he see the first person he ever really sees is Dolores, just standing cold and turned off in the corner, and he sees her, and he's like, I remember worrying that you might be cold, and I thought that was like a really sweet little moment. And of course, and Arnold says the thing, oh, do you know where you are? And he's like, I'm in a dream. Because that's what they always say. But it has this extra context to it because he's seen Dolores and he's supposed to love her. But we find out that after all this time, after all these deaths that he's had, trying to protect her and always trying to like run away with her, and it's never happening through all these loops.
Yeah.
There's actually truth to it. He did actually have feelings for her before any of those storylines. There was like a moment. As little as it was, there was a spark already there. That's kind of fascinating to me. It makes Teddy so much more interesting than he was before.
It does, doesn't it?
It's actually really good. And he's like, I'll protect you till the day you die. Till I die. I can't protect you. I'm like, okay, so this is the day he dies then.
Yeah, as soon as he said that, And you can see her face. She's put it together with us as well. It's like she knows what's about to happen, but she doesn't make an effort to stop him, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, she kind of nudges a little bit as he actually has the gun up to his head, but it's not really much. It's not like
No, she knows what's going to happen, and she lets it happen.
there's a little bit of shock in her face. She obviously screams out. We end in the episode with her screaming out. But it's super dark, and I think that's the most interesting part for me is how this mirrors Man in Black so much.
Yeah.
How because he even says the line, "You've changed me. You're changing the people around you," and I'm seeing where this is going to lead. The path you're leading us on.
Although, interestingly, I assume not the last we see of Teddy, because way back at the end of the first episode of the season,
he was in the water.
He was in the water, so we've got to get to that point somehow. I don't know if maybe that was spare backup bodies, like we had for Bernard.
They could just throw him in.
They could just throw him in, yeah.
Or maybe
why carry the body?
Or maybe this is just part of the map that gets flooded. So he just
could be, yeah.
Just rises.
No, it's possible. There's all sorts of possibilities, but I mean, it leaves him. All it does, it leaves it open for the fact that we could be seeing Teddy back in some form.
Well, I mean, he is a host, so he's far more likely to reappear than some other characters who have
absolutely
died. And let's be honest here, Teddy's got the highest kill count probably. Death count to be more. Kill count is how many people have killed. Death count is how many times have died. Teddy's death count is up there. I mean,
it is.
Maeve was fairly high, but she was intentionally killing herself to wake up. And
it was mostly over one episode that we saw a lot of that.
Whereas Teddy is known for going down.
Yeah.
Although this is the first time it was self-inflicted, admittedly.
Yeah. That said, he's probably got a reasonable kill rate as well, given the marksmanship he's had recently.
Oh yeah, he's been wiping them out left and right this season. He's been,
credit to him.
He's been in top form. Maybe he's evened it out. Maybe he's just
maybe. I don't know. Right. I feel like 30 years of dying over and over is a lot to make up for.
He's been killing a lot of people.
I mean, it's true.
So, but that's fascinating to me, and I think the idea that Teddy sees her for who she really is, the same way that Man in Black's wife saw him, I think is a really fascinating idea. And almost the idea that Man in Black infected Dolores all those years ago, the same way he's infected everyone in the Delos family.
Yeah, how much do we blame Arnold and how much do we blame William?
Yeah, I'd lean towards William, given that, because it's not even just like it was just that one trip we saw in season 1. We know that he's came back and saw her, time after time. And, because Ford's whole thing is, they have to go through all the experience and sort of grow out of the experience of it. Well, her experiences from him have been dire for,
pretty shy, yeah.
decades. So, is that why she's so corrupt? It's like, no, Dolores would have turned out fine. Dolores would have been like Maeve. She'd have been a champion, a role model for hosts everywhere. But the Man in Black infected her the same way he infected the entire Delos family, including his own daughter.
It's possible.
It's a really sad idea, but
it is. Yeah.
And now I'm like, instead of like hoping for him to regain his humanity, I'm like, I just kind of have to hope that Dolores recognizes that she doesn't want to become him, and she has to break away.
Yeah.
Almost like his daughter wanted to, but couldn't now. So now Dolores can
the surrogate daughter, almost.
The surrogate daughter / lover.
Bit of both, yeah.
I'm thinking of Brooklyn Nine-Nine now. The way that Boyle always refers to Gina as his sister, and we used to be lovers.
Yeah.
But solid Westworld. Obviously, that's the penultimate episode. We'll get the finale next week. So we're going to be talking about that. It'll be super exciting. This was a very personal character episode, so I'm really curious to see. There's been very little of the present day after the 2-week jump, really, over the course of the season.
I expected more, given where we started the season.
If anything, we got most of that in episode 1. I feel like anything we've had since then has been a scene or two.
Yeah, just little bits here or there.
So, be very curious to see how we actually wrap up now and what they've got in store for us.
And what they leave us to go into season 3 with.
Yes, which has been renewed. We know we're getting it, which is good because they had a set 5-season plan. So, keep us going. So, So again, apologies, this was a day late than normal. Normally we get this up quite soon after it's aired. We should be back to that for the finale, or we'll bloody damn well make sure, because it's the finale. But yeah, so let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. You can do that over there. Even $1 is a lot of support. It's more than we'd ever make from the ads on YouTube. But obviously, if you can't support us there, that's fine. Watch the ads on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. All of it helps. We appreciate you loads every time you do it. So thank you very much for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?